Did your Australian bank ask whether you are a U.S. citizen, U.S. tax resident, or green card holder? And did that immediately make you think, wait, is my Australian bank reporting me to the IRS? Will the IRS know about my accounts? Am I in trouble because I live in Australia and haven't filed U.S. tax return? This question is very common for U.S. expats in Australia, and the answer is not as simple as panic or ignore it. In this video, I'll explain what FATCA is, why Australian banks ask these questions, what information may be reported, and what you should review before assuming the worst. Hi, my name is Vilma Soloria. I am an Australian CPA and a U.S. IRS Enrolled Agent, and I work with cross-border tax issues involving Australia and the United States. So I understand both sides of this anxiety. On one side, you may be dealing with Australian banks, Australian tax residency, your ATO reporting, superannuation, family accounts, and your normal everyday life in Australia. On the other side, the United States may still treat you as a U.S. taxpayer if you are a U.S. citizen, green card holder, or otherwise considered a U.S. person for tax purposes. This combination can feel overwhelming. But the goal of this video is not to scare you. The goal is to help you understand what is happening so you can take sensible steps instead of reaching out of fear. So why Australian banks asked about US status? Let's start with the proof. Australia participates in automatic exchange of financial account information with many countries. This includes FATCA, which applies to U.S. citizens and U.S. tax residents, and CRS, which applies more broadly to foreign tax residents of other countries. Australian financial institutions must identify accounts held by customers who are foreign tax residents or entities connected to foreign tax residents. Those accounts are reported to the ATO, and the ATO then report the account information to the relevant foreign tax authority. For U.S. persons, the relevant system is FATCA, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. FATCA requires certain U.S. taxpayers holding financial assets outside the United States to report those assets to the IRS on Form 8938, and that this is separate from the long-standing foreign bank account reporting requirement. So, when your Australian bank asked about your US status, it is because financial institutions have legal reporting obligation. This is where many expats panic. They hear reported to the IRS and immediately think audit. But FATCA reporting and an IRS audit are not the same thing. FATCA is an information reporting system. It helps tax authorities identify foreign financial accounts and financial assets connected to U.S. taxpayers. An audit is a separate process where the IRS examines a return or filing position. So yes, FATCA can make foreign accounts more visible. So the important question that you should ask is, does my US filing position match what may already be visible through Australian financial institutions? What this means in real life? What type of information are we talking about? Well, FATCA reporting includes your identity details, account balance, and other information provided by your banks to the ATO. ATO then sent those details to the tax authority in your country of tax residency. For U.S. persons in Australia, these may include information connected to Australian bank accounts, certain investment accounts, and potentially accounts held through entities, depending on the facts. This is why banks ask for your tax residency and your taxpayer identification number. For U.S. persons, that could be Social Security number or SSN, ITIN, or EIN, Employer Identification Number for entities. What you should not assume. Here are three things you should not assume. First, do not assume that because you are in Australia, the IRS cannot see anything. Second, do not assume that because your account is normal in Australia, there is no US reporting consequences. And third, do not assume that FBAR and Form 8938 are all the same thing. They are related, but they are not identical. The Form 8938 reporting requirement is separate from the FBAR reporting requirement. And yes, a US person may need to file both forms. A warning: separate penalties may apply for failure to file its form. That point matters. A U.S. expat in Australia might have Australian bank accounts, joint accounts with a spouse, superannuation, managed funds, foreign pensions, company accounts, trust interest, or signature authority over business accounts. Some of these may trigger one form. Some may trigger another. Some may require review but not reporting. The danger is not always the account itself. The danger is assuming no review is needed. To make this practical, here is a simple 5-part review framework. This is not a substitute for advice, but it can help you organize your thinking. Step 1. Confirm whether you are a U.S. person for tax purposes. If you are a U.S. citizen or green card holder, your U.S. filing obligation does not disappear simply because you are living in Australia. Step 2. List all your accounts, not just the accounts that earned income, not just the accounts with big balances. List everything, including accounts where you only have signature authority. This matters because U.S. reporting forms do not all work the same way, so it is important that you gather all the information first. Step 3. Separate FBAR from Form 8938. FBAR is filed with FinCEN, not attached to your tax return. Form 8938 is attached to your U.S. income tax return if you meet the filing threshold. This is one of the biggest traps for expats. You need to check both. Step 4. Check whether the Form 8938 thresholds apply to you. For taxpayers living abroad, the thresholds can be higher than for taxpayers living in the United States. But be careful. Higher threshold does not mean no review. And Form 8938 is not the only form to consider. Step 5. Check if you have not filed U.S. tax returns, FBARs, or required information forms. If you are behind U.S. filings, do not ignore it. But also do not rush into filing random forms without understanding the correct compliance path. Some taxpayers may qualify for streamlined filing compliance procedures. Whether that applies to you depends on your facts. This is where proper review really matters. So what happens if you ignore it? Now, let's talk about the stakes. The biggest risk is not that you have an Australian bank account. The biggest risk is mismatch. For example, your Australian bank reports you as a US person, but you have never filed a U.S. tax return. Or your U.S. return says you have no foreign accounts, but your Australian financial records suggest otherwise. Or your Form 8938 says one thing, but your FBAR says something else. Or you report income but miss the information forms. These inconsistencies can create problems. Failure to file Form 8938 when required may result in a 10,000 US dollars penalty with additional penalties for continued failure after IRS notification and a 40% penalty on underpayments attributable to undisclosed foreign financial assets. This sounds frightening, but here is the practical key takeaway. You do not need to live in fear. You just need to get organized. What to do if your bank sends you a FATCA or CRS form? Do not ignore it. If you do not respond, the bank will treat you as if you are a tax resident in a country outside Australia, even if you are not. You should respond truthfully and to the best of your knowledge. Penalties may apply if false or misleading information is deliberately or recklessly provided. Do not write Australia only if you are also a U.S. citizen and still treated as a U.S. tax person. If you are unsure, pause and get advice before completing the form. If you need help reviewing your U.S. Australia tax position, talk to a human. Call us at 617-3203-6789 or email us at hello@usautax.com.